Well, welcome to part two, folks. For those who might not know what part two is, there was a part one to this that showed a gunfight in the middle of Sprague and Crestline between two rival groups of individuals. It also showed a shooting out on North Pines in the valley. And the fact that these things are going on in our community, the fact that our crime rate is going up in our community, the fact that violence is increasing in our community, everybody asked me a question. Sheriff, who should we be talking to about getting you the tools and the ability to take care of these issues? Well, let's start here. The Spokane City Council. More specifically, let's start with Brian Biggs. Brian is the president of the Spokane City Council. For years, Brian has fought the county's ability to fix a broken criminal justice system. Even though the plan that sits on a shelf that was created in 2011 brings to bear all the programming that Brian always talks about a triage center to make sure that we're putting the right people into jail, people that should be going to jail versus people that should be going to treatment. And it fixes an overcrowding issue that Brian used to sue me all the time, folks, when he was working in private practice or with the Center for Justice. And one day I asked him, Brian, when are you going to sue me for the right reason? Because you know what the right reason is. The right reason is the same reasons I gave in 2009 to the Board of County Commissioners. We run an unsafe, overcrowded jail. When are you going to sue me for that? Now, Brian never really gave an answer, but I'll tell you why Brian didn't sue me for the right reason. Because if we fix the problems, folks, he loses money stream. It's all about money. If we fix the problems, he can't get sued anymore. From now on, every Friday at 9 o'clock for an hour, I will be in this conference room. And I'm inviting all these people you're going to see to show up at my conference room and talk about these issues of how we fix them. I really want to know why Brian has fought a system that was designed on smart justice, a system that Mark Richard and I brought to this community when Mark Richard was a county commissioner. Why is Brian fighting the very smart justice concepts that he claims he's all for? I want to know. Next person, Councilperson Betsy Wilkerson. We know Betsy's tendency not to really support law enforcement. I believe there's a video of that out. Lori Kinnear, Zach Zapone. Zach actually ran on defunding the police. And Councilwoman Karen Stratton. These are all people that you should start asking why. Why have you put so many restrictions on SPD's ability to do their jobs and use the tools properly to do their jobs? Why? That's a question for you. The next three, 3rd Legislative District, Senator Billick, Representative Marcus Riccelli, and Representative Tim Ormsby. These individuals passed, sponsored reforms in 2021 that damaged our ability to keep you safe. If we would have received information about that shooting at Sprague and Crestline, and we were coming into the area, and that silver van was a block and a half, 2 blocks away from that area, based on what they did, we couldn't have pursued them. We couldn't have stopped them to identify them to see if they were the shooters. These laws are damaging, and they did it under the guise of police reform. This didn't reform my profession. It was a get out of jail card for the criminal, and the criminal knows it. You hear time and time again from agencies across the state. They get behind a car, they turn on the lights, the car takes off, they can't chase. The bad guy knows. It's costing people their lives. So I'm hoping that these three live up to a commitment to fix their laws, their legislation, because Andy last year said that sheriffs and chiefs in this state, when we stepped up and said, these reforms are unclear, we don't know how to interpret them, we can't do certain things based on the interpretation of our legal advisors. They said we weren't telling you the truth. He said we were lying. Well, a couple of weeks ago, the Attorney General's office for the state of Washington came out with a brief concerning the laws they passed last year. Here's a very crisp summary. Your laws are so vague that we cannot advise law enforcement and or the public as to what your intent was or how they should do their jobs. Legislature, you need to fix your laws. That's as clean and crisp as I can give it to you because it was a 26-page document. But that's what the AG's office kicked back. So I guess, Andy, we weren't being obstructionist. We weren't being against reform. We weren't lying to the public. We were telling the truth. Your law was ill-conceived and ill-implemented. All of this should have been worked out before you ever brought that onto our society, onto the streets of this community. This individual was a Spokane City Council person from 2010 to 2018. So she was part of these years of a broken criminal justice system, and now she wants to run for Spokane County Commissioner. And she is for the same broken policies of restorative justice, which, folks, they don't even know what restorative justice means. The same broken policies that don't hold people accountable, but they want to say, well, we want to break recidivism. No, you don't, because you don't want to do it correctly. You don't want to use smart justice, and you don't really use restorative justice in the way it's intended. And their definition of restorative justice is to restore the criminal, but forget about society and forget about the victim. I'm interested to see what she has to say, because she's already criticizing the sheriff's office and our budget, saying that we overspend our budget and everything else, when we actually gave $1 million back to the county last year because we run a very tight ship. She needs to learn about the organization she wants to lead. And these individuals: Curtis Robinson from the NAACP, Walter Kendricks from SCAR, which is Spokane Community Against Racism, and Sandra Williams from the Carl Maxey Center. All of these folks talk about reform. All of these folks talk about disparity. But the problem is, the information they're putting out, folks, is not the truth. SCAR just put out information that, hey, crime's going down. The reforms are working. Crime's going down. I think they must think that we're all just not paying attention or stupid. What they need to realize is these reforms didn't go into effect until late June. We weren't able to get training and everything out and understand how to implement their new reforms until August, September. So at best you have a 6-month data pool, and you want to say crime's down when SPD's going, crime's up. when the sheriff's office is going, crime's up, and when you have gunfights like you just saw happening in your community at roughly 5 times the rate of about 2019. About 153 of these type of shootings happened in 2021. We're at 21 of those type of shootings by February of 2022. And you want to tell me crime's gone down. Ask them for the truth. Ask them to come forward. I've tried to talk to these folks about racial disparity. These two especially, and him, but these two in particular, I met with them a series of meetings because a group came in and said, Sheriff, will you help us work on the racial disparity issues? More than happy to. This group said, okay, thank you. I said, well, what about these folks? Sheriff, don't go talk to them. Okay, if we don't go talk to them, if we don't invite them to the table, all they're going to do is throw rocks at whatever you try to bring forward. Sheriff, I wouldn't do it. Well, I probably should have listened to them. Carmen Pacheco-Jones, Cam Zarasuza, Francis Zawari. I should have probably listened to them, because what I learned by talking to these two people was nothing about a solution. I learned that I was white, because in one meeting, folks, they used that word 8 times. Sheriff, you're white. I finally went, time out. Anybody in this room get to choose what color you were born? Didn't think so. Can we now agree that I'm white, but can we also agree that we have a problem and we need to fix it? Will you please come to the table with a solution? The thing is, they don't want to talk about any solutions, because when you put hard data up, Sandy got really angry with me one day when I put the hard data up. What was that hard data? Well, on a 5-year trend line, African Americans shoot police officers at a 44% rate of the populace that are involved in those type of crimes. So, and it's roughly boiled down to 6% of the population is responsible for shooting 40% of your law enforcement officers. Now that varies between 35 to 40% depending on years. It's about an average of 38. But that's the hard data. Here's the other hard data. 54% of the victims of homicide in this country are African Americans, more specifically African American males. 54% of the homicides, ladies and gentlemen. 55% of those who are killing people in this country, those who are responsible for the homicides in this country, are the same 6% of our population, African American males. They get really angry when you bring that up, and when I go, disparity? That's a disparity. When are we going to talk about the fact that 54% of the people that die in our country due to homicides are traditionally younger African American males? Is that not a crisis? To me, it's a crisis. If I have that much of a demographic that is dying due to homicide, that's just not a crisis. That is an endemic issue. We have to fix that. That is a stain on our society. When are you going to come to the table and talk about how we fix that disparity? Because those are the types of disparities that lead to higher incarceration rates. When we have to deal with people that are committing higher level crimes and they represent a smaller level of the population, you think there's not going to be disparity in the amount of arrest and the number of people in jail based on population? And we've already covered this, folks. Population-based disparity is junk science. Sociologists and criminologists, true researchers, would never use it. So when are we going to come to the true table? And when are we going to deal with the true issues? people get really angry with me. These people get really angry with me because I am willing to talk about this. Many people aren't because they're afraid of being labeled. Afraid of being labeled a white supremacist and afraid to be labeled a racist. Well, if me trying to stop the death of young black men makes me that, I'll be a racist for you all day long. Just get to the table Friday at 9, 1 hour every week, and we will start moving and trying to find progress. If you don't show up, well, I guess you're not all that serious about trying to fix the issues. Everybody on this screen, and you know who you are if you see this video, that's an invitation, an open invitation. And if you want to fix the issues, let's get busy, because we have kids dying and we have gunfights in our streets. Just something to think about, folks. This is Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich. Have a great day.